Call the meeting to order and welcome everyone to the February 3rd, 2025 council meeting. Can I please have a roll call?
Councillor Gabrielle.
Here.
Councillor Graham.
Here.
Councillor Dowd.
Here.
Councillor Dahlman.
Here.
Councillor Fisher.
Here.
Councillor Hunter.
Here.
Councillor Nunnally.
Here.
Councillor Carlson.
Yes.
And Mayor Johnson.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
No.
Mr. Graham, can you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have our agenda in front of us. Look to council for approval. Mr. Nunnally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Ms. Gabriel. Motion second. All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We have three items on the consent agenda this evening. The first item are the council minutes from the January 13th, January 21st, and January 27th meetings. Second item is reimbursement for upsizing of lift station and force main. This item considers reimbursement of $282,691.36 in sewer impact fee funds to Meadows Edge LLC as city participation in the upsize of the regional lift station and force main located in the Meadows Edge Phase 4 development. And the third item is approved payment for City Hall roof replacement to Montana Roof Works. This item considers payment of $82,256.16, which includes accumulated change orders. Is there any public comment on any of the three items on the consent agenda? See none, look to council for a motion. Mr. Nunnally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second, thank you, Ms. Gabriel. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. No committee report this evening, so at this point in time, we're going to open the meeting for public comment from any individual wishing to address the council on items not on the agenda this evening. Please step forward, state your name, and give your comments to the council. Okay, well, I'm going to close that opportunity. Next item, or the first action item, is ordinance 1932. This is the second reading municipal code revisions for unsafe structures and penalty application. This ordinance considers revisions to address the concerns of security and safety of vacant buildings. Mr. Russell?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this would be the third meeting we've had on this. We've had a work session going over the proposed ordinances and then had them approved on first reading at the last regular meeting. Was not a unanimous vote, so that's why it's on the action item for the final reading. Again, as you'd mentioned in the introduction, basically it's just adjusting our municipal code to make it easier to incorporate the fire code into some property maintenance enforcement, basically dealing with the security of ingress and ingress to vacant buildings. So with that, happy to answer any questions council may have.
Any questions for staff? Carry over. Any public comment on ordinance 1932? No? Look to council for a motion. Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I move that we adopt ordinance number 1932, an ordinance to amend ordinance 1890, adopting new sections 10, 12, and 1013 of Kalispell Municipal Code, Chapter 10, as enumerated and set forth on Exhibit A as a portion of the fire prevention ordinance of the city of Kalispell and applicable within the corporate boundaries of the city, to provide a penalty for the violation of any lawful order issued pursuant thereto and establishing an effective date.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Discussion? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Your Honor. So when we were talking about this the first time, I kind of went back and forth where I was at with my position on this and ended up voting no for this. And since then, I've thought more about it as well. I'm still voting no, but there's a couple things I maybe put out there for consideration. The first one is that this was brought up as Mayor Johnson pointed out at the last meeting. This was brought up because of the condition of just one specific piece of property. That kind of got to me when thinking about that. The other thing is, I don't like that this is being couched under the fire department, because there could be situations where you're going to be looking at things that it's going to require probably an engineer or something, and our fire department, our firefighters, they're not engineers. And we just passed a citywide levy for emergency services, and I don't want to start saddling our fire department with things that are kind of outside the scope of what they would be doing, that might start pulling them away from activities that they should be doing for the levy. So, with that being said, I'm going to continue to vote no on it, but I just wanted to maybe clarify, my differing positions from the first meeting and where I'm at now with it. So,
Other discussion? Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, I guess I just respond to that, just from my perspective. I can't imagine that we have enough vacant buildings that it's going to take a significant amount of time of our fire department to go and assess a building for the situation. We've gone without this ordinance for so long, and it took one incident and pretty bad situation to prompt, the realization that it'd be good to have this in our code. But that means a lot of time there just hasn't been that situation in our community that we needed this. And so it's hard for me to imagine it taking a significant amount of time from our fire department. We don't have the chief here to ask him, but I would imagine that it would be fairly insignificant in terms of the resources of the fire department to just check in and make an assessment on a building.
Mr. Fisher?
I too would respond, and I think we're fortunate that that building didn't have a major fire with everything that was going on down there that could have risked our good people in the fire department. So I guess my thought is something a little preventative could save a whole lot of costs, probably costs to the city as well, potential harm to our firefighters. I think we dodged a bullet. And I want to be in a power position if there's another situation like this, that we have the ability to deal with it somehow. So I will be voting yes.
Mr. Graham?
thank you, Your Honor. I also forgot to put in here that since that meeting, that building is secure with the new, and I don't know how the ins and outs of how ownership of that works now, but that building's been secured now. And also, I think that was it.
Mr. Dowd?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to be voting no again on this for multiple reasons. First off, this physical security violation does not belong under the fire code. I'm not really sure what we expect our firemen to do. How are they going to assess a building for egress and ingress? Do they have to go try every door in every vacant building? Right? I don't think that it belongs there. I think there's quite a few people on the council that agree that it doesn't fit firmly into the fire code. I also don't want to elevate the code enforcement over our regular policing activities that we do. Anything that we do, any new regulation, any new, like if we had a code enforcement person or whatever, that takes city budget. And we've already heard from the people of Kalispell that they want more policing for criminal activity, and diverting some of that over to code enforcement, whether it's by effort or by budget, I don't agree with. And also, there was a argument last time that And this is an argument that can be made for every single thing that comes up before council, but what about the children, right? At some point, we got to place the security of kids on their parents. I don't think it's the city's responsibility to make sure that kids that are already trespassing are safe. They shouldn't be trespassing in the first place, and do their parents know where they are, right? So for all of those reasons, I'm going to be voting against it again.
Mr. Nunley?
Thank you, Your Honor. It's been a tough one for me, much like you, Chad. I've been going back and forth all week on this. For the exact reason that Mr. Dowd said he's going to vote no is exactly why I think I'm going to probably still be voting yes, because, and same with Counselor Graham, it is the fire departments that do egress within and out of buildings. That is the department that does that historically. Kalispell used to do that years ago. Back when my stepfather was still in the department, we had people that went out and checked for the ingress and egress and the safety of the buildings. That is exactly the department that it should be under. I also feel that even though I don't want to go down the path that takes us to code enforcement and HOA type policies, I also recognize that, yes, we can say that it was one building that brought this to our attention, but it has been many buildings over the decades living here and seeing this happen that this has been something to address, which is what the fire department used to do when there was a fire marshal that did that job, and now it changed to a different job. So, yes, it is the fire department's job to do those things. So I guess for those type of things, and I don't think it's going to be something that's going to take a lot of fire department time, right? I could think of maybe 5 buildings in the last 30 years that I can think of that it would probably have directly affected, really impacted and done anything with. So it's not going to take a lot of time. But I think as our community changes and evolves, I think having this back in the toolbox for the fire department for those times that it does come up, I think it is something that is important there. My concern is if we don't put it there, then it is an easier path to go to a code enforcement officer, and I do not want to go down that path. So that is why I will be supporting it at the fire department level.
Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry.
That's
I would,
okay.
I didn't mean to hit you. Mr. Nunnally, I agree 100% with everything you said. When I first came onto council, there were 2 officers in our fire department that, I don't know if it was their exact job title, but it was Mr. Rafato and Mr. Haas that were, in fact, they came to visit me at the place where I worked. And we had to clean up our mess because we weren't following fire code where I worked. So we did have that, and I think it is a very good place for it to be. And I am going to support this 100%. The other thing I wanted to say is, somebody brought it up, it might have been Mr. Dowd, about the criminal activity, and I hate to think of the criminal activity that's already taken place in those walls and around those walls. So I think having the tools to be able to make sure this doesn't happen again, I think is very important. Thank you.
As last time, I'm not going to vote for it. Once again, I think we're shoehorning in to the fire code something that is more of a knee-jerk reaction because of what happened on one particular property in Kalispell. And, I look at it and say, look, if we really want to go down this line of controlling ingress, egress, the condition of property, because what I heard more often than not was about the appearance of this building. Now, everything was running down. Yes, there were people in and out, but that is trespass. There are laws against that. It takes an owner basically to make that complaint. I just step back and look and go, remember, anytime we pass legislation as a Band-Aid, it never works. And understand that when we pass this isn't just an immediate, the fire chief looked at it and now we can go board up the building. There's a legal process that goes through. And I can think of one other property in Kalispell. It was about a year-long process with that property on the east side that had everything in the yard? Much longer. So, we look at passing something, assuming it's going to have an immediate impact and be able to fix something, and it can't. Because we still have property owners' property rights, being able to address, et cetera, but we have to go through a process. And that process would still be ongoing, and it's already been solved through the market. So even though we'd have been going through that process, we couldn't have sealed up that building until we had the order to do it. So I think we're trying to do a Band-Aid. It feels good, I guess, to vote for it and do it. But I don't think it's that effective. And I said, why throw another law in the books that's not necessarily going to be effective? So I'm not going to support that just because I think we're assuming too much good can come out of this. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Your Honor. I know I'm taking the third bite here, but one of the things that, talking about fire marshal and the fire department, how things used to be, a long time ago, we're not the same city as what we were back then. We were much larger than what we were back then, and I think larger cities would have different requirements placed upon them. This is why I keep asking the question about, what is the population, that a city meets where a code enforcement officer starts to become a necessity. It almost seems like, cities, they go through and they're a strong mayor type of a government, and then they get to a point to where you need to move into what we currently have, with the city manager. And so I'm also voting no on this because I do think we need to have a discussion, as we've said before, about whether it's a property maintenance code in conjunction with discussion about a code enforcement officer. I mean, we're going to have those discussions, so I'm not going through and kind of shirking and being like there's not a problem that needs to be looked at. I just think it's much larger. So I'll be done now.
Okay, you'll be done now.
I'm done now.
I'll take my other bite.
Apple's almost gone.
I would say, the property that prompted this got secured probably because some neighbors trespassed, likely, on the property to secure the building originally, and then ultimately it was taken over by different ownership. That it's great that happened, but we can't count on that happening in the future with other problem properties. And we could have easily been in a situation where it didn't get resolved. And one of the things I think my frustration, what drives me to support it, was we were hearing from folks the problem on the property and we couldn't do anything about it. It was just sitting there as a problem in our community that we were hearing lots of complaints about as a very kind of imminent danger to the community. And, I was telling people, we can't do anything. We're bringing it up at council and our hands are tied. And so this gives us a tool in the toolbox. I don't see the negative of it. I don't see where adopting it creates any kind of harm or negative for the community. It gives us a tool. It may not be a perfect tool. I recognize that, the constraints of enforcing it and stuff. But in extreme cases, I think we can enforce it. It would take a while, but we at least would be acting and addressing a problem in the community. And maybe we can put some more tools in the toolbox with further discussions, but I will be supporting it.
Mr. Dowd, another bite?
Second bite. So I understand the frustration here, but this is supposed to be frustrating for government. Government is not supposed to be able to immediately jump on private property and do whatever they want to it. There's protections in place to protect your private property. Now, I'm not saying that these guys were doing a good job at the building in question, but it was still private property. They were liable. The city wasn't liable. They were liable because they didn't secure their own building. So we basically what we're doing with this is, first off, we're putting it onto the fire department, which they don't currently have this role. Whether they had it in the past or not, they don't currently have it. And we're making something more illegal than it was before by adding an extra level of illegality to it, which something's either illegal or it's not illegal. Making it more illegal is just, it's patting ourselves on the back. Oh, we did something about this problem when we didn't really do anything, because it's not going to actually fix anything going forward. It's still going to be a complaint-driven system. And now, instead of it going through the channels it does through the city and the staff here, it goes through the fire department and then through the city and the staff. And I think our lawyer's still going to have to write as many letters as she did before. So in any case, I just wanted to make sure that we knew that this wasn't making something illegal that's not illegal now. It's just giving government a faster way to do something to private property. So once again, I won't be supporting it, but I just wanted the people to think about that as well. Thanks.
Any other discussion?
Not a green apple two-step and go.
Core left. Wants the core. Otherwise, let's have a roll call vote.
Counselor Gabrielle,
Aye.
Counselor Graham,
No.
Counselor Dowd,
No.
Counselor Dahlman,
Aye.
Counselor Fisher,
Aye.
Counselor Hunter,
Aye.
Counselor Nunley,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
No. Mary, let's see, motion passes. Wow. Just same vote count as last time. Say I'm shocked.
Almost.
Almost, that's true. Ordinance 1933, the first reading, Emmanuel Living Skybridge zoning text amendment. This ordinance considers amending the zoning ordinance 1677 to allow pedestrian skybridge in B, H, or P zones to encroach into the setback area. Mr. Russell?
Mayor and Council, I'll turn it over to our Assistant Director of Development Services, BJ Sorensen, for the staff report.
All right, thank you, Mayor Council. When a skybridge connects two buildings across the street, there are potential issues related to both setbacks from the property line as well as the encroachment into the right-of-way. Current setback provisions do not allow any portion of the structure to encroach into the setback. Under the zoning ordinance, setbacks apply to any part of a structure such as eaves or decks. If a skybridge crosses a right-of-way, it needs to be within the setback or area in order to make that connection. This amendment would allow for the connection to be located within the setback area if it is located in a business, healthcare, or public zone. The amendment is intended to address a technical zoning issue, and a lot of the details of construction are already handled through existing city regulations. The encroachment to the right-of-way is handled separately through an encroachment permit issued through the Public Works Department if it's a public right-of-way, or through whoever owns a private right-of-way. Details of the construction of the skybridge are handled through the building permit and site review processes, including types of construction and necessary clearances. This is the actual text that's being proposed, notwithstanding any setbacks specified in this ordinance. A pedestrian skybridge connecting two buildings located in any B, H, or P zone, which extends over a public or private right-of-way, may encroach into the front or side corner setback area, provided that all other applicable zoning and other code requirements are satisfied. There are currently two skybridges within the city of Kalispell. The first one connects two Glacier Bank buildings in the downtown area on 2nd Street West, just off of Main Street. Since it is located in the B4 Central Business Zone, which does not have setbacks, there was not a setback issue with the connection. The second skybridge connects county office buildings across 11th Street West. As part of an overall construction project that declared an agency exemption as a county agency, zoning did not apply to the project. In neither situation was the setback an issue, and it did not need to be addressed at those times. While this proposal is not a review of a specific skybridge, the purpose behind Emmanuel Living's proposed text amendment is for a skybridge across Claremont, connecting its existing facility on the west side of the road to a new addition on the east side. The setback in the H1 healthcare zone is 15 feet, which would not allow the section of the skybridge from the building to the sidewalk area. In order to construct the connection, this text amendment is necessary. As noted in the application materials, quote, "This street is quite busy with both vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic. Many of the drivers and walkers are elderly and have mobility issues. The proposed pedestrian bridge is intended to bridge the two sides of the campus and provide safe access for residents. Many residents of Emmanuel Living utilize amenities on both sides of the campus. The pedestrian bridge will provide a safe route for residents to access the amenities on either side of the campus, unquote. Sky bridges are not directly addressed in the growth policy, although Chapter 8 on transportation does list several goals and policies which call for providing safe streets for both vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Allowing for a sky bridge connection between buildings helps provide a separation between vehicles and pedestrians, which in turn reduces the potential for accidents. By furthering these goals and policies, the request is consistent with the growth policy. And with that, the Kalispell City Planning Commission adopted the findings in staff report KZTA 24-01 and forwarded a recommendation to the Kalispell City Council that the proposed amendment be adopted, and be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Ms. Dahlman?
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's just say we wanted a sky bridge across 93. Would that be something that would be possible?
Across where?
Highway 93, like Main Street.
Potentially, MDT would have to weigh in on that and whatever appropriate clearances they'd want to see through that. But yeah, Main Street would be a commercial area and there would be the potential for that, depending on where it's at. But what I would note is downtown, we don't, as with the Glacier Bank Bridge, there's no setbacks downtown, so they could do that downtown with or without this text amendment.
Okay.
Mr. Hunter?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'm taking from this, I looked in our code, but we don't have anything else on sky bridges. Like basically the building permit would be the only, and the kind of site review would be the only other process or code that would apply to sky bridge. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. So you'd be looking at, like I mentioned, whatever the encroachment permit regulations would be that Public Works would be looking at. If MDT or another agency was involved, whatever requirements that they would have. But yeah, type of construction and everything else in terms of how it would be built would be through our regular building permit and site review process.
All right. And then with the public zone, I guess this is, well, I noticed that the Hutton Ranch area is zoned public, which, because I know it's DNRC land that they're on, so I guess it's public, but since it's all commercial, seems to me that should be a commercial zoning.
I think it is zone commercial with PUD overlay. Yeah, I don't think it's P1 up there.
It may be incorrect then on our GIS.
Kid sports is P1, but the commercial is commercial.
Okay.
The commercial area is zone commercial. There could be some, depending on the maps you're looking at, the growth policy or something, but kid sports is P1.
Okay.
And obviously the college on the east side as well.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Any public comment?
Hi, good evening. My name is Jennifer Tipton. I live at 123 Crabtree Lane. I live just south of Kalispell, but I live south of Wiley Slough, which is fed by Ashley Creek and Patrick Creek. Kalispell wastewater treatment plant discharges into Ashley Creek and has had a permit to do so for quite some time. Lakeside County.
Ma'am,
Yes.
this is just public comment on this item.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have an agenda on me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't have any comment on that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Any public comment in ordinance 1933? You're online. See no public comment. Look to council for a motion. Mr. Dowd?
Thank you, Your Honor. I move ordinance number 1933 and ordinance amending the Kalispell zoning ordinance number 1677 to allow pedestrian skybridge connections over right of way to encroach into setback areas in the city of Kalispell and declaring an effective date.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Nunley. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Hunter?
Thank you, Your Honor. have a lot to say on this, surprisingly. It totally makes sense for why this came to us with the assisted living facility. As somebody who had one parent, potentially another parent coming to live in assisted living locally, to have them the ability to get across the facility during wintertime without going out in the elements and the ice and the snow and the risk of fall and everything else makes a lot of sense to me. So I don't have a objection to the hospital zone and the public zone either. My concern is around the business zone. And I think in some instances, sky bridges would be okay in the business zone. But my understanding of sky bridges, some of the critiques of them, one of the main objections is the concern that it takes street activity off the street, and reduces kind of the pedestrian activity in your downtown shopping, retail areas, and can reduce that business activity and that feeling of kind of an active community that with streets that are vibrant and dynamic. And I know cities that have a lot of sky bridges, there's been concerns about those impacts. Cincinnati, for example, my understanding is they have a lot of sky bridges and they are actually working to actively remove some because they feel like their downtowns have been negatively impacted by the amount of sky bridges and that effect of taking people off the street and not having some of that retail activity and just that vibrant activity downtown because people aren't on the street. In fact, our main street, we have events like Frosty the Brew Fest and the Holiday Stroll and the art events during the summer and so forth, because we're trying to draw people downtown and have that street activity. And our safe street plan of doing the road diet on Main Street and widening the sidewalks and so forth, part of that is to encourage and promote that walking activity and that activity downtown. Now, we're a long ways away from having enough sky bridges downtown to have an effect, but I do worry about if it's allowed outright and there's no kind of review or any sideboards on it, that over time, it may have an effect. So I think about situations where I think I'm okay with it, like the ones we have existing where you have office space of an entity, whether it be the county offices or Glacier Bank, where they have multiple buildings and those office workers are just going between the buildings of their own kind of business. But I could imagine like the redevelopment of the mall space, where you might have multiple buildings that have a mix of retail and restaurant space and so forth, and you put a sky bridge, I don't know whether it's second or third that we're talking about kind of punching through. I can't remember which street we want to punch through the mall area for reconnection there. But if we put a sky bridge over that, allow people to kind of do their retail and their restaurant and shopping and stuff by going on a sky bridge, that takes people off the Parkline Trail. And the whole idea of the Parkline Trail, part of it, is to have that activity on the trail and kind of that vibrant community. And the people driving by, if you had a redevelopment that really is successful, you drive by and you see all these people out and like, hey, this is a cool area to be. I want to check this place out. So I would have concerns about it with sky bridges that are connecting kind of a mix of retail businesses that's taking people off the street. So that would be one objection I have with just kind of a blanket zoning approval for sky bridges in business zones. The second part is any consideration of view shed. So Ms. Dahlman raised the question of Main Street. Well, one of the great things about a view shed of Main Street is being able to look down the street and you see the courthouse kind of at the end. It's this public building. It's beautiful. It's, it frames the Main Street. if that were marred by a sky bridge, now I think a sky bridge is probably unlikely across Main Street because you have to get the MDT approval and it's a fairly wide street. It'd have to be a fairly significant engineering structure to do a sky bridge across there. But I can imagine scenarios like that where it would infringe on that view that's important for our community and the streetscape. And then some of the other examples I might think of is First Avenue's east and west, and Center Street, where if over time, these become really nice pedestrian retail corridor areas and you have some nice mature street trees on there, that you look down the street, there's kind of a certain look to kind of a vibrant street that I think personally would be marred by a sky bridge across there. So I would move to amend this proposal to remove the business zone from the proposal, postpone that until we have an opportunity to have a work session to discuss some sideboards to put on sky bridges within business zones so that they're not outright approved, but we have under certain conditions they can be allowed based on some of the things I mentioned.
So is your motion to strike business or to postpone this?
To strike the business with the idea that we're postponing adding business to
But no
a later date.
postponement of ordinance 1933.
Correct.
I want to
Just-
make sure we're
yep.
not
Yes.
tabling, right, Mr. Dowd?
Just giving the full picture. I'm moving to strike business zone with the understanding
Your
that
wish
I
would
want to
be
bring
we'd
back.
come back and discuss adding
Right.
business,
Right.
or alternatively approve it as is and then come in and amend it later. Just suggesting. So we have a motion to strike the business zone from ordinance 1933. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Discussion. Any more discussion? Mr. Allman, since you seconded.
I mean, I think that was my biggest concern was the downtown, having a sky bridge across downtown. I just can't imagine there would be one across 93. I see your point, and wanting to bring business, to downtown businesses, so, yeah.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is setting an exception. So anything in the downtown, there's no setbacks. It doesn't apply to this.
It's already there.
That's what I was gonna say too.
It's already allowed in the commercial, it's already allowed in,
This is
There's
to
no-
go and
it's an
set an
exception, yeah.
exception
yeah.
for areas where you have, this sets the exception where areas where you have the public or private right of way, where it encroaches, you can sort of read the whole thing. It's not just about that. It's going through and creating that exception.
In that case, a better method would be the city not issuing an encroachment permit, which in that case would be MDT who owns the highway.
In addition to that, in the downtown area, because it's in the historic district, we've got architectural review standards that would apply as part of that review as well. But yeah, just to reiterate, that's why you've got the Sky Bridge over Glacier Bank, because it's been allowed for decades downtown. And it's never been an issue. This is just about a technical setback issue in zones that do have setbacks.
So I guess like a point of clarification as well, if the council chose the amendment, a better process would be, it's not set up this way to say require a conditional use permit within those zones. But I would hesitate to just start striking because you're starting to pick winners and losers. If you're going to do it, it should be kind of uniform. And the council could require a conditional use permit for a sky bridge. That's not the way it's set up, because like I said, in a number of areas, it hasn't really been an issue. But in other parts of the city where it's a commercial zone, not in the downtown, like say up in the Hutton Ranch area, then hypothetically, yes, this would come into play. So if the council wants to consider that, a better method would be not to just start striking Because really those three zones are incorporating in this because they're more equitable and consistent that way, because the zones are somewhat similar. If you start kind of picking and choosing, you could potentially run into some issues with that.
Okay.
So is like the mall area, does that have setbacks?
Does not have setbacks.
Doesn't have setbacks.
So
So our
B3
core
does-
area and downtown.
Yeah,
does not have
B3 doesn't, and B4. B3 would be most of what's going east-west along the Parkline Trail. And they used to be our B5 zone. And then B4 is the core downtown.
So they don't.
There's no setbacks or lot coverage in those.
So this would more apply to Meridian, Hutton Ranch area.
We could complicate it a lot by saying in B1, B2, but it's, in this case, it's just in commercial zone, because it makes then the commercial zones equitable in the sense that you could have a sky bridge without trying to complicate it and segregate it out by zone.
And I think it's also important to note that, some of the examples, like Minneapolis, for example, has got the downtown system of sky bridges, and it's kind of more of a city project to try to get people moving around downtown when it's cold out in the winter. This isn't about establishing city sky bridge. It's not a sky bridge program that's out there. It's more of a way to accommodate certain situations where it would make sense. And I think the three that you see in town, the two that have been built and this proposed one, it's you've got an entity that owns on both sides. Glacier Bank owed property on both sides. They were connecting that just to kind of make that connection. Same thing with the health department when they did theirs, and the same thing with Emmanuel Lutheran. So we've never gotten any inquiries about any other ones that have been out there, and we're not looking at implementing a system of, a network of them downtown as any part of our transportation plan or anything else. But this is just a way to accommodate situations where it makes sense, where there's a technical zoning issue that currently doesn't allow it.
Yeah, and I understand that. I don't think this is an immediate problem. But like I said, you could have an owner that owns two buildings and is planning kind of mixed development, mixed commercial within those two buildings, and you're connecting them on the park line, and them applying for a sky bridge, and just because we don't have it now, under this, and I understand, I'm hearing you now that they could do that now. So I guess I'd be willing to remove my motion with your consent, but I would ask for a work session to talk.
We got a motion second, and we got a vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can just roll through it. Is there any more discussion on it?
Thank you, Your Honor. Being involved with the county sky bridge through the building maintenance department, I believe the total cost was $950,000, all said and done. With inflation, probably double that. I don't see a real big run on sky bridges coming, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, some of the statements could happen, but man, there has to be a really good reason like this, or connecting buildings, and this serving our seniors makes sense. But I get wanting to see things that could come forward, but I just don't see a big run on sky bridges coming our way.
Can we have a roll call vote on the amendment?
Counselor Gabrielle?
No.
Counselor Graham?
No.
On the amendment. Counselor
On
Dow?
the amendment.
No.
Counselor Dahlman?
I'm sorry, no.
Counselor Fisher?
No.
Counselor Hunter?
Also, no.
Counselor Nunley?
No.
Mayor Johnson?
Oh, maybe. No. Back to the original motion on ordinance 1933. Any other discussion on the original motion? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have my mic on. So I'm going to support this. I think it's a great use of, in this case, the ownership of the two different buildings. And what I really like about it is it separates the uses of type of traffic, where you have vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic. Keeping those two separate, I think, is a big deal, especially in this instance when you're talking, Northwest Montana, ice, snow, wind, blizzard. It allows for going, from side to, from one side of the other to the other for people that live there and everything. So to me, it makes complete sense to go through and support this.
Mr. Dowd, and
Thanks. I just would say that I will go ahead. I'll be supporting this motion. But as far as doing a separate work session on sky bridges themselves, I think that we can address this when we have to redo our entire land use because of the Senate bill. I forgot what the number 382. We have to redo all of it. So that would be a good time to address this specifically. So I don't think we're in an immediate danger of having sky bridges over Main Street, but it can be addressed when we do that.
when Helena makes us all Houston, Mr. Dowd, it won't matter.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree that there's no immediate danger here. This is definitely a long-term concern, so I'm fine with addressing it with updates. I would ask that it be on the agenda for when we go for updates. I do want to just make the point, though, for me, this is definitely like with the specific example in the hospital zone, it's about folks in frail condition and stuff, or just getting out of the cold and winter in the ice and everything else. I very much object to the idea of removing pedestrians from the streetscape and turning that over to vehicles only. I think the answer to that is to make our streets safer, like our safe street plan, and not kind of remove pedestrians from our streetscape. That's I want our streets to be accessible, safe, and not require sky bridges for pedestrians to be safe on our streets.
Anything else to beat this dead horse?
Oh, can we talk
Yeah,
about
we're-
Whitefish's?
What do you want?
Can we talk about Whitefish's Sky Bridge?
No. The village between here and Eureka shall remain nameless. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Gabrielle?
Aye.
Counselor Graham?
Aye.
Counselor Dowd?
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman?
Aye.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
Counselor Hunter?
Aye.
Counselor Nunley?
Aye.
Mayor Johnson?
Finally, yes. Motion passes. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mayor and
Russell.
Council. I just went ahead. As part of this project with Emmanuel Lutheran, one of the things they're doing is a big construction project for some new apartments. Previously, they have issued conduit bonds through the city of Kalispell. Does not affect our rating, does not affect any liability. There's potential that they'll be doing that through this project as well. If all that goes on schedule, we'll have a resolution of intent, I think, first meeting in March. Pretty standard, straightforward process, but I throw it out there in case anyone wants to have a work session on that topic. Like I said, it's never had one before, pretty straightforward, but I thought I'd at least throw it out there since,
This is for what project?
for Emmanuel Lutheran's construction project
Oh.
for their new apartments.
And bonds.
Yeah,
Is there anyone running for the U.S. Senate? Because God forbid you do, the bonds will become an issue like they did for Bozeman. So just be careful if you want to run for the Senate when we do this meeting.
okay, so I think we'll just plan on going ahead like we have in the past.
Well, yeah,
Just ask Mr. Sheehy.
Okay, so just wanted to check that one. Upcoming work session next week, we'll have the Trails Subcommittee. In the manager's report, Public Works did identify the use sustainability analysis. That's a project that's been going on for multiple years, really stemming from our wastewater permit. Actually, there's a little bit of reference to it tonight. We'll actually have a work session on it next Monday night, really to talk about the years of research that went into it. Basically, when they issued our latest permit, they immediately did it with a variance because they knew that basically the results couldn't be reached. And we're like, well, okay, if you can't reach those results, why are they even in our permit? It's just kind of how that process was. So went through a lot of research to identify really the actual components within Ashley Creek and some of the actual load coming in, the temperatures of it, to apply for a site-specific permit that's outside of the statewide permit, but is a site-specific from, that would just be dealing with our permit. So Public Works will have an update on that whole process at next week's work session. And then again, also we'll have the Trails and Subcommittee report, or meeting, and start the discussion at the full council level on that as well. And the last thing, I'll be in Helena on Wednesday giving testimony. There is legislation being proposed, and it is to sunset every mill levy that voters have approved, including those that are approved permanent. And I just want to read, because it's very unfortunate that's the direction we're taking. But here is current state code. And I'm abbreviating it to take out all the stuff in between, but 1510-425 says a city may impose a new mill levy by conducting an election as provided in this section. 1510-425. The resolution must include whether the levy is permanent or the durational limit of the levy. If the majority voting on the question are in favor of the additional levy, the governing body is authorized to impose the levy. So that's existing law. For the last 13 years, I've been talking to legislators about the problems of 15-420, which is our property cap at 1/3 or 1/2 the rate of inflation. The response I get a lot of times is, oh, there's no cap. All you have to do is pass a levy under 1510-425, which is exactly what we did. Matter of fact, here is our ballot language. Shall the city council of the city of Kalispell, Montana be authorized to permanently levy up to 60 9/10 additional mills per year? That's what our voters voted on. Now there's a bill that no levy can be more than 10 years. Every existing levy, even if it was permanent, will expire. And ours wouldn't even last 10 years. It'd be 6, because it'll sunset in December of, I think, 2030. So we followed the rules that the state legislator has in place. And I put it, they're not changing the goalposts, they're changing the game because they don't like the outcome. They don't like what our voters said they wanted for emergency services. Now, again, there's a fundamentally ethical issue in my mind about doing that, but there's also the challenge of staffing emergency services when you have a pending levy that has to be reauthorized every 10 years. And they'll respond with, well, if it's that important, the communities will pass it. And we can start reauthorizing that up to 3 years in advance. Well, if you're an emergency responder and you're hired at year 5, you get trained, you're on the street in year 6, and then guess what? Oh, we're going to have to pass a levy to guarantee your job. They may start looking for other work in other places. So it's a big problem that is in front of them, and they're pushing for it. They're also pushing a companion bill that'll be heard on the same day to change how levies even get approved. So again, state law, if the majority voting on the question are in favor of the additional levy, it'll be passed. Their new bill now says if a majority of the qualified electors are voting and vote in favor, then it passes. So you have to get a majority to even vote. If less than 40% of the qualified electors vote, no mill levy will ever pass. Because by state law, you can't. So you have to ensure that you have a minimum 40% turnout. And if it's between 40 and 50%, 60% of those voting have to vote in favor of it. Those are our state legislatures that are considering this bill. And I call attention to that because 5 first-class cities went out for a special mill levy election for emergency services. You would think that maybe they had realized there's something wrong with our tax structure instead of let's find a way to penalize those that follow the rules that we put in place. So that'll be Thursday, or Wednesday at 3 o'clock in Senate, local government. I'll be going down to testify on that, along with, I think, many other municipalities. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Who authored that bill?
That would be Senator Hertz out of Polson.
Oh, he loves the cities.
Socialist.
Mr. Dodd, I'm just gonna go this way.
What's that? I'm good.
Oh.
Oh, I do have some. I'm sorry. You got me off track with that whole
Okay.
story. I just wanted to let our public know that we did have general public comment. I think somebody came in right after that. But if you'd like to come up and talk to me, or whoever wants to stick around after this, I'd be happy to hear it. But the best way to get it on public record would be to send an email, and then it'll be public record. Okay.
And next week, we'll take public comment at the work session too.
But it's early on.
That's all I had, Your Honor.
Mr. Hunter, Ballman, Mr. Graham?
Yeah, so I think loved hearing that. That was a great way to end the night with your update for the legislature there. You know, but thinking about that, what you're talking about it possibly ending, that's kind of the equivalent of one-time money. You know, that a lot of cities got one-time money, you know, through the COVID funds and stuff that came in. They set up a program, the money goes away. Now what do you do with the program? How do you fund the program? That's a big question to ask. Do we get left, holding the bag of the emergency emergency services levy after 6 years? So, I don't know. They need to be really careful, because you break it, you own it at the legislature, because they could really cause a lot of damage in emergency services if they move down this road, in my opinion. Because I don't see how, that was saying, how do you move, how do you go through and move forward on something that was, and we followed the rules too, so, I don't know, it's not ethical, that's for sure.
Sorry.
Well, I think it honestly gets to the point of the next time people go to vote for their legislators, they need to ask a valuable question. Have they ever served on a city council, or have they ever served as county commissioner? Have they ever served on a board? I think this is just, well, I'll just leave it at that.
Mr. Gabriel?
You don't want me to say?
You sure?
what's on my mind?
Okay, well, I'm gonna start it out pretty quick and easy, and it's only gonna be very short comment. Remember, this is the same group of people that now think they can run the cities and counties that did so much good effort and work on mental health in the state of Montana in 2017. I've concluded, after watching the last two sessions, what I'm starting to see out of this session, Flathead County beware. When you look at these legislators running and you see that little letter behind their name, the R does not stand for Republican. There's nothing in what you've told me, Mr. Russell, that seems to reflect what the Republican Party stands for. I think what the R stands for in Flathead County now is reprobate. It's where I am. And it's why I cannot wait to get out of this seat and be done, because I'm tired of fighting these reprobates. They don't look out for the cities. They don't look out for the state. They don't look out for the counties. They look out for themselves so they can pat themselves on the back. It's really frustrating to sit and look at all the work and effort that we've done over the last 11 years, plus many years before this, trying to operate a municipality appropriately, conservatively with cash, always mindful of how it impacts the taxpayers. And these reprobates go to Helena and do this stuff, not to us, but to our citizens. It is amazing the animosity that they have towards cities and probably most likely our city, because we step up and we say and we call out what we see. And I'm not going to stop calling out what I see. So from now on, the R is reprobate. It's not Republican. And I just ask that the people, when you look at the primary races, don't just assume the last guy who ran or the last gal who ran is the best person for that seat. Ask them these questions. What is the proper role of government? What's the proper role of municipal, county, and state government? And why don't the principles that they always talk about, federal government, stay out of our business, why doesn't that apply when they start looking down the chain to counties and cities? It's really frustrating watching this, and the fact that I have a governor that seems to support it is even more ridiculous. And I'm going to stop there because it just really ticked me off.